Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fail Forward Live. My name is Michelle Ragusa-McBean, and I am so thrilled to have my next guest today, Marc Monday, Channel Chief, a gentleman and a scholar, and Managing Director of Global Go-to-Market for Citrix. Thank you so much for joining me today, Marc.
Michelle, it's such a pleasure to see your smiling face there in sunny Florida. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and are you joining from rainy Seattle?
Well, I always like to complain about the weather here, but it's actually lovely. I'm having a problem with too much sunlight in this room right now. So I have to say it is absolutely beautiful here.
Wonderful. So I'm sure everybody knows Citrix, but for those of the people listening who don't know about Citrix, would you mind telling us a little bit about who they are and what you do?
You bet. So Citrix helps companies and organizations deliver a consistent and secure work experience in the office, home, or in the field, work wherever you are. Our digital workspace and solutions give each employee the resources and space they need to do their very best work. And that spans traditional desktop virtualization, our emerging workspace, security, and networking.
That must have been very happy for many employees during the global pandemic.
Yeah, for real. I mean, the nice thing is, Citrix is an incredible company with a rich 30-year history, but talk about the perfect technology for the pandemic, moving hundreds of millions of users from the office to their homes seamlessly with managed desktops. It was incredible. And a huge thank you to our partners and the IT professionals out there, because they're kind of the unsung heroes in this whole thing. Those folks really made it possible for everyone to work from home safely. So it's been an absolute privilege and a joy to watch this technology really help people in a dramatic way over the last year now.
That's incredible. And, I love your LinkedIn posts for many reasons, but one of them is you do a lot of fun posts about the future of work. I can see you in the behind the scenes of what your desk actually looks like sometimes.
Right. This jamboree behind me, right?
And I just love that. And so we know, obviously, I always say the genie's not going back in the lamp. We're in a new normal. And so definitely great technology, great company to watch. Thank you. So
yeah, the future of work for sure is hybrid. And I think as long as employers understand that and you can work wherever you want and do your best work whenever, more or less, I think employers will be very, very happy that technology enables that. And I think for employees, we went through sort of that depressive state of being locked in at home. But there was the upside, too, of we're with our families more, we're sleeping in our own beds, maybe we're traveling a little bit less, maybe we've embraced fitness, we're going for walks. And so I think this hybrid work is going to be the real reality of the future.
I love that so much. And in my role, I've been in the tech channel for 17 years. So I have worked remotely. I've telecommuted. I've been expected to come into the office every single day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Very different versions of my current reality. And I love the ability for choice. I think that it's a happier employee is actually going to be a more productive employee in the long run. You'll have more retention, you'll have more success. I know, and it's not just for women. Oftentimes we talk about work-life balance for women, but men have balance. Everybody has balance that they want. They have families or self-care, all of these things. So I love the new normal. And I love what you said about pausing and giving people space to be with their family. Yeah. I joke, but sincerely, this was the first time in over 10 years now that I've been with my husband, Jay McBean, who you also know.
The famous, amazing.
Dinner together every night with our kiddos.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. So
Right. I mean, there's some silver linings here that I think will only become clear to us when we move back into this hybrid world. But just being home and having maybe a different routine has been incredible.
Right.
It was stressful, obviously, but I think there's some really nice nuggets in terms of how we comport ourselves professionally and personally and maybe find the right, as you say, balance between the two.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the humanization, the people that were just, I met everybody's children,
Mhm.
everyone's pets,
Yeah.
everyone. I don't think you could get more personal except for the hotel lobby bar after the conference. So I felt like it was still a really great way to connect on a very much human level. And everybody had to pause and rethink what they're doing.
Yeah,
So
you nailed it. I mean, the reality is we're letting people into our homes, right? Before we could have the wall between our work self and our personal self. But when your family is, 10 feet out the door, you are really letting your work family into your personal family and vice versa.
absolutely. Now, this is something that I'm always was curious about, right? So I would spend a lot of time looking at successful people early on in my career and saying, I wonder how they got where they were. I wonder what they did. I wonder if they had mentors. And I would ask all these questions in my head. As I got older and more tenured and seasoned in my career, I got to meet such amazing people. And I really, as we talk about mentorship, recently there was a study about McKinsey saying 1 in 4 women are leaving careers in
Mm,
technology due to the pandemic. It was, as you said, a very challenging time. So the purpose of this podcast really blossomed
mm,
in the sense of getting to know successful leaders and understanding their journey, their successes, what makes them passionate, what makes them inspired, who inspired them, what they taught them, and sharing that with a greater network. And I believe at the end of the day, people truly buy from people they like. And
yeah.
how do you not like somebody more when you get to know them better? So I'm thrilled to have
Mm,
you as a guest because there's so many questions that I and the audience have about Mr. Mark Monday.
mm.
So I'll start with my
Well,
first.
let me first say I love the mission and the purpose. But what I would say is you may have gotten the wrong person, because I would say I've had more failures than successes. And I think I've done it wrong more than I've done it right. And I think that's something that people really need to understand is, and you've seen this graphic before, that, your trajectory isn't a straight line. It's very squiggly, and it's the bottoms of the troughs that actually help you through the next phase.
Mm,
So thank you for that. But I would say if you're looking for the picture perfect career progression, 100% not the guy. If you're looking for the person who's failed a ton and learned from that, that's definitely me.
awesome. I think you're my guy. And I think everybody, what I love most about this is that everybody has failures.
Yeah,
Everybody who is successful takes a chance, takes a risk, and they don't all go perfectly. And not everyone admits it. And that's the purpose, right? Is to say it's okay to talk about the failures that so many people have, myself included, because that allows us to really grow and learn and to succeed. And I believe personally that I can learn something new at every age and stage in my career. There's nothing that I'm
it's
not going
true.
to learn from somebody else.
It's true.
So I love soaking in those lessons.
I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and for whatever reason, I think there's a lot of shame around failure. And
Mm,
when you listen to her talk, it's really kind of toxic when you think about it, because what do you want to do more than anything else is help people maybe work through their failures or work through their learnings. And so, sort of demystifying the shame of failure, the demystify the shame of sort of learning when you didn't know, I think is so important, because we all make mistakes. We just want to make sure that we learn from those mistakes. And oftentimes our greatest success come from our greatest failures.
absolutely. Well said. Well said. So let's start at the beginning, Mark. What was your first job and what did it teach you?
Hmm. Well, I was going to start by saying my very first job, when I was about 11 years old,
Hmm.
was weeding a gladiola field. Gladiolas are really beautiful flowers that grow in the Midwest, across the street for 25 cents an hour. And that
Nice.
is true, by the way. But my really first job was detasseling corn in cornfields. And so I don't know how much you know about corn, but at the top of the corn, there's a little stalk that is the pollinator. And
Mm,
when you're genetically kind of trying to breed the most vibrant corn, oftentimes they want to take the top of the corn off, the tassel.
nice.
And I was 14, 10 hours a day out in the fields. You had to wear long sleeves in 80, 90-degree weather, and
Wow.
otherwise your arms would get cut up. So I don't know if you've ever seen a corn stalk in the hot, dry summer. is like a razor blade.
Ouch.
And the first day I went out in the field, they had told me to wear long sleeves. I didn't. And my arms came back just cut top to bottom.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did that job teach you?
I think with that one in particular, I'll just use the example of the right equipment and being prepared, and kind of listening to others' learnings. So I remember we were on the bus from my town out to the field, and people were like, "Man, you didn't wear long sleeves. You're going to be in trouble, and you didn't bring gloves, and you're going to be in trouble." And I'm like 14. I'm like, I'm tough. And, it was one of those classic examples of like, hey, people are telling you this because it's real. And then that night, I'm laying in bed and I've got calamine lotion. This sounds like a 1920s story, but I got calamine lotion all over my arms. And I'm like, I really should have listened to those folks. There was something there.
Wow, I love that. I love the ability to listen, to take in advice, and to be prepared. Very
and
important.
I'm horrible at it still, but it is a great lesson. It's like they're telling you this for a reason.
Now you just buy it on the cob in the supermarket. You're better off there.
It's so funny. I do absolutely love sweet corn. So yes, I do.
I do too. Who doesn't? I feel like it's delicious. Okay, great. So that's a very intriguing first job. I've never gotten that one. My next question is, did you know you always wanted to work in technology? How did you end up here? How did you meander this path?
Yeah, I mean, it's serendipity and luck. I'll be honest with you. I was really lucky when I graduated from college. I thought I was going to be a college professor, and that didn't pan out for a number of reasons. Mostly, I couldn't afford to stay in college. But I started out as a licensing guy, and I was doing contract licensing and formulation licensing for a pharmaceutical company. And by sheer serendipity, I realized software is all about licensing too. And so I was lucky enough to take that licensing background and then parlay that into working in technology.
Right. That's incredible. Now, looking back at young Marc at 21 years old, what advice would you give him as he's about to embark in the world?
Oh my gosh. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace. I think too often we're so focused on getting there that we forget about enjoying the journey. And I think that's really, really important, is to be kind to yourself. We're generally very good at being kind to others, but I find that people are often not very kind to themselves.
That is so true. That is so true. There was this incredible video I watched not too long ago, and they had people come in and they asked them to tell them all about their worst traits and worst characteristics. And then they said, I want you to read this to your sister or your best friend and they were like, or your little sibling. And they were like, I can't say that to her. Like, well, if you can't say that to your best friend, why would you say it to yourself? Right. But we do bad self-talk sometimes. And
that negative self-talk, and it's something that I really struggle with, is toxic. And you have to find a way, and you have to sort of listen to yourself, say, well, I would never say that to someone that I cared about. Exactly. And it is a very challenging thing to do. I think it's because we all strive to be better, and we hold ourselves to a different standard. But just again, I think being patient with yourself, being kind with yourself, and just taking a moment to breathe, I think often is so important.
Powerful. Now, you are a channel chief in tech for many years, for many different companies, Microsoft, Cisco, Citrix, incredible background that you have. What is a myth that you would debunk for anyone who thinks something that you've heard about channel chiefs that you can kind of demystify?
That's a great question. I guess I would say the thing that confounds me the most is that people believe that channels are different than sales and marketing, that it's a completely different discipline. And the reality is it's just the same stuff. It's just done a little bit differently. When we're leading ecosystem sales, it's sales. When we're leading ecosystem marketing, it's marketing.
Absolutely.
And it's always about the customer. Can you meet the customer where they are in their journey today with someone they trust? And I think too often we kind of get it twisted that, oh, that's an island. The channel's an island. The channel's a mystery. And I think too often we do it to ourselves as well. I love my channel events and I love my channel people, but it's like, it's sales and marketing. It's about the customer. It's all the same. Are the steps a little different? Maybe. Is it a little bit more complicated under the water? For sure. But it's sales and marketing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think probably the channel is probably one of the most understood parts of many organizations. And we had a term when I worked at JS Group saying save the channel. And that is such an interesting concept. People say, well, why do we have to save the channel? Because things are changing, and there's oftentimes a priority to say, oh, well, we have to focus on sales or focus on marketing. But partner-led organizations are incredibly important. Having that bandwidth, and the channel partner, especially during the pandemic, I mean, they were the essential workers. They were the front line.
For sure. Yeah. Just as we were talking about at the beginning, I mean, the reality is the last mile, whatever that is, if you're a technology company, that last mile of the implementation, the service, the support, the connecting multiple disparate technologies, that is the most important step. All the money you spent to build your product, all the money you spent to do digital marketing, all the money you spent in the sales cycle, all the money you made in terms of the proof of concept or securing the customer, it all falls apart if that last bit doesn't get done. And more often than not, in very complex technology implementations, there's a partner there.
Right.
And increasingly, it's not just that point of the initial implementation. It's the life cycle of the customer, that emerging discipline of customer success, because it's always on and it always needs to be used and it always needs to be improved upon.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I love your obsession with your partners and your customers and the ability to just listen and learn. I think that being a student of your audience is so critical to success. And it's probably what helps you be successful, I think. I love your engagement.
Yeah. I mean, I forget, I think maybe it was Eric Stein at SAP. He did a speech once and he was talking about, the center of the universe isn't the vendor. It used to be, we as vendors with our amazing technologies, and I've worked for some really cool brands, would show up and be like, we're the center of the universe. But the reality is that the center of our universe is the customer. And we're all satellites that revolve around that customer. And as long as we keep that in our minds, then we do what's right. When we begin to think our thing is special, and it is, but when we begin to think it's the only thing, that's where we lose sight of what we're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, all this technology is designed to help people do their best work wherever they are.
Very powerful. I love that very much. So we talked a little bit about some of your successes, and you've given us a little bit of an Easter egg that you've had a few failures. So I'm going to challenge you to come up with what was your biggest failure and what did it teach you?
I think the biggest overall failure, and maybe there'll be a double click on this conversation, is, again, I think this fear of failure is always overriding for me. And I think the fear of being exposed as not knowing, I think that was a big failure. I think once you realize that nobody knows what they're doing, even the best executives oftentimes are faking it. And you don't know. I think that's the biggest lesson for me. And then I think the most important lesson that I learned is asking for help can be a superpower. And too often we are given direction or a goal or an objective, go do this thing. And we're afraid. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what the steps are. I don't know who to work with. And we're afraid to go back and ask, but I didn't understand your direction. I didn't understand what the plan was. I don't know the steps. We're all terrified of it saying that we don't know. And we're all terrified of asking for clarity or asking for help.
That is very, very strong, poignant, sage advice, right? I love that nobody knows anything. The concept is very powerful. And we mean that tongue in cheek, but obviously to say that there's an expression that I heard once, which is a reimagining of the old expression, fake it till you make it, which makes me a little upset because I feel like you're not faking it, you're learning, right?
That's right.
And the expression that was reimagined was own it till you hone it. And I love that more because it feels like everybody. So when you take a job for the first time, especially if you haven't done that job in that company prior, or for another company prior, you're going to learn some things along the way about that company, about that role, or about your target audience, or about your cross-functional teams and your particular partners. And there may be similarities, but there's definitely going to be differences. And so you have to learn and grow in that role in order to be successful, right?
Yeah, I would say the other kind of big epiphany for me, and it's interesting to be on this planet for as long as I have. You're constantly learning about yourself and the way you work. And part of that is because you're reflected in the people that you work with. And increasingly what I see is, we're also often focused on the what and the why. And it's almost always the how that trips us up. How do we work with people? And people are unique. People are cool, and people are weird, and people are brilliant, and people do weird stuff and make dumb mistakes. And wherever I get tripped up, it's always because I didn't understand someone's motivation. And that's also maybe something you don't learn in school, or maybe something you don't learn when you're doing your particular curriculum, is figuring out how to work with people, because everything we do, particularly in technology, is around a project. Putting together a project team, 1 million people dive in, and that forming, norming, storming thing, that process is very complex. And invariably, every time I failed, it's when I didn't understand the who and how they wanted to work. And I think that's a really important part as well. And I would say that's continues to be my greatest challenge, even as I'm at this stage in my career.
Those are very, very strong words. And I understand. So I didn't share with you, my first job was waitressing. And I reflected early on in life that you can have a table of 10 people who all want something different.
Yes.
And you have to please everybody in their own way. I like the book, The Love Languages. And I say that everyone has their love language, even as employees. What's your employee love language? What's your customer sat love language? What is the way that you engage with people? And in that particular instance, you may have somebody that says, I want you to fill my water glass every 5 minutes. And somebody else is like, just give me the check when I'm done. I need some space. And so you have all these personalities, as you said. And I love that interpretation and that analogy. And I think what's important is we don't know what people are going through. Recently, I was on a Women in Tech call, and the manager was saying, I have a pupil who doesn't get along. There's somebody on the other team, a cross-functional team, that doesn't get along with my person. And what can we do? And the first go-through reaction by everyone on the call was, well, let's, you would talk to their manager, and you would escalate, and you would yada, yada, yada. And I said, well, first of all, we're living in a global pandemic. I've met with hundreds of partners over the last few years, and all of them are experiencing, including myself, very personal, professional challenges. So one, give people grace. Like if that car is rushing behind you, maybe there's a reason. Maybe they're trying to get to their sick child in the hospital. I don't know what their intention is, and I can never assume it without listening and learning from that person what their goals are. And you are much stronger to influence them if you do understand what they're trying to achieve, and helping all boats rise evenly together, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's that famous quote, and it's a tribute to a lot of people, but I like the Robin Williams version, is everyone's fighting a battle you can't see, so be kind always. And oftentimes when there's this mismatch of goals or objectives or whatever, there's something else going on. Sometimes maybe they've got something chaotic going in their life. Maybe sometimes they've got a different, set of experiences. And generally I find everybody wants to do good work. Everybody wants to achieve the specific goal. I kind of wish humans came with an instruction manual. I'm almost wish that there was a little thing hovering over it where I could push a button and say, oh, this person likes to be talked to this way. Their preferred mode of communication is one-on-one meetings. Their hot buttons are these 3 issues: respect, values, and ethics. And, definitely don't say this. And to be most effective with them, do the following steps. And
you've never seen that button yet? I'll send it.
Perfect. I wish every human came with that, because what you discover is if you knew those things, you would shape your behavior in a way that worked most effectively for them. You would meet the individual where they are with a UX and a demeanor that they would thrive in. What ends up happening is you end up sort of teasing it out of people, because people put their shields up, phasers on, and it's a battle. And you're like, but I need to understand how I can most effectively work with you. And again, this goes back to humility and empathy, and it's a really difficult task sometimes. And I'm horrible at it, and I'm absolutely horrible at it. And so it's something that I just have to keep leaning into. Like, why am I at cross purposes with that person? I think we have the same goals. There must be something happening there. How do I get to that?
That's a very, very good question. I try to go to lunch with them. That would be my suggestion. Yeah. Sometimes the more time.
But that's what the pandemic sucks. Because again, I agree. Go have a meal with them, find out more about them. But we're not going to go sit and have lunch and watch people chew on the video screen. And so that's the challenge in this time of how else do you do it?
Yeah, no, I know. And this is very true. And that's why I've done a lot of social selling coaching to a lot of sales and marketing team over the last few years. And what I say to them, and this is so interesting to me, but I asked them early in the call, what is your personality? What is your persona like? They're like, oh, I'm authentic. I'm genuine. I'm funny. I'm trustworthy. I'm like, well, what do you like online? Oh, I don't say anything. I'm very professional.
Right.
I don't. And I'm like, well, what just happened that you crossed a chasm that you lost who you were? Because you are who you are, who you are. You are on the golf course, as you are in the restaurant, as you are on stage at the conference, as you are one-on-one with your customers on social. So for me, there is no brand. It's what you see is what you get. I see that with you as well. And I love that because I think we let our guards down and that lets people in. And I think that there's an opportunity to just extend that olive branch and say, maybe we started off on a bad foot. And I say, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I know, but I think that it is important to try to understand, and that's
it's a trust thing. I mean, again, different people have different speeds to trust. And I heard someone describe it the other day. I always used to say that it's people put on certain types of armor or clothing for different types of conversations. But I heard someone describe it as different masks. And I think one of the things is that a lot of people want to protect themselves, protect their hearts, protect their feelings. And so sometimes the mask is the thing, like which mask are they wearing? And, just because we're willing to be like, let's go dive in deep and really have the conversation about our operating model, not everyone is. And so I think probably the biggest thing is just really trying to understand, they're wearing their work mask right now, or they're concerned about failure, or they want to be perceived as a leader or tough in the scenario. And sometimes you can't get them to put the phasers down or the shields down. Sometimes they're not going to change, but you can still say, okay, I understand now. This is the way this person operates. Let me do my best to try to adapt. And it's a constant struggle.
I often think about the mentorship question for a lot of reasons, especially because there's some people that are so much like you and there's some people that are so different from you. So I'm curious, in your life, in your journey, who are your top 3 mentors and what did they impart? What wisdom did they impart in your life?
So this is going to be a little bit of an oddball, and it'll let you in on sort of my operating model. My top 3 mentors are people that I've never met. I'm a pretty introverted, sort of in my head type of person, and I love books. One of the biggest breakthrough books that I ever read is by an author called Susan Cain, and it's called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And she's a very introverted person. She is working in a very extroverted world. She's a lawyer, very high power environment, lots of back and forth. And she realizes that she's sort of been sublimating the fact that she needs her inner time, her quiet time, all these other things. And for me, the epiphany there was not everybody has to be this amazing on the stage CEO with all this incredible charisma and presence. And if we're doing that, sometimes we're actually doing damage to ourselves. We're sort of faking it.
Right.
The other thing I really like about that book is, I have a marriage that is, I'm the introvert and my wife is the extrovert. She's charming, amazing, and people love her. And she's the most amazing dinner party guest ever. And, I'm there in the corner, trying to cower, not to have that conversation. But what the thing that was great about that book is we both saw something in each other, and it was a breakthrough. And we've been married for a long time. When I read the book and then she read it, I found that incredibly helpful. The second one, I would say is Brené Brown. And again, person I've never met, but I have just loved. If I were to meet her, she's the complete opposite of me. But this idea of embracing and feeling okay about shame and mistakes, the idea of radical empathy and opening up. I don't know if you saw her Netflix special, but that opening up and being comfortable telling your story. This is the story I tell myself. Does that make sense?
Right.
I found that incredibly powerful. And then maybe the last one, and this is a book where, I think it is sometimes maybe kind of the cup of tea things. People I've recommended it to, they either love it or they hate it. There's a book called Essentialism by a guy called Greg McKeown. And Greg McKeown's basically thesis is you can't do everything. So you should do the important thing now. And, in this world where everybody's surfing the top of their inbox and showing up to every conference call and trying to be everything to everyone, you realize it's incredibly ineffectual and it's incredibly taxing. And so, he really tries to hone in on what's the important thing right now. And the important thing right now might not be this. It might be, wow, I'm exhausted. I need to go take a nap. Wow, I haven't eaten. I better go eat because I'm crabby. I haven't hydrated. I haven't gone to see the doctor or whatever it is, or I haven't gone for a walk in nature. And, again, this goes back to we're masking up for work, but then the reality is we're still humans. We still live in these bodies and we need to take care of them.
I love that so much. I'm going to have to read and watch the Netflix special, all of those things. I'm taking feverish notes in my mind. I'll have to watch back later just to make sure I capture all of them. But
the Brene Brown one in particular is great because she tells a story about a relationship with her husband. And in this particular narrative, she's got something in her mind and she's gone this way. And he's like, I wasn't thinking that at all. But once she told the story, it was resolved.
Wow. Very powerful. I listened to one of the things that I do for my mental health break, which started during the pandemic, is I had limited hours because my workload actually multiplied because I had so much help to give other partners in the community. But I would decide that I would take a run because I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to be around people. So it was a personal thing. And for me, it's not like I'm never in a runner's club. I run at my own speed. But I listen to things like Audible or podcast or whatever I can, TED Talks while I'm running, just for moments of inspiration. And this one woman was a psychologist who called herself an editor because she was sort of that Ann Landers, Dear Abby of our current age. And she said people would write her stories and they would write it in their narrative. And it was her job. And my mom would always say there's 3 sides to every story, yours, and the truth, which is somewhere in the middle of those versions.
So true.
So she said, I had to then rewrite the husband's story without knowing it. But from my 25 years of working in psychology, I would say it probably went something like this. And then you take her story, which left things out, and his story, which added embellishments in. And you said, okay, well, maybe now you see each other's reality. And I think that goes back to what we talked about earlier, is that everybody has their own perception of reality. And that doesn't make it wrong. It just takes time to understand, as you said earlier, what the other person's intention or perception is.
That's right. Yeah. It's, and I think in terms of failures, and learning from failures, you just got to try and try to not make the same mistake more than 7 times, right? Or whatever it is. And, we need to keep working at it. And every new interaction is you're starting again. And sometimes we get better, sometimes we get worse, but we just need to keep moving forward. And to your point, you sort of just fail forward, and you see those failures as lessons, not as failures.
I love, looking at all of the Michael Jordan, I missed this many times, or Thomas Edison or Walt Disney, all of the times they were told no and all the times they failed. They would have never known success if they quit at one of those failures. So I think it is a good prompt to keep trying. That means you're that much closer to success when you're failing.
I mean, look at a professional baseball player. If you're a professional baseball player and you hit the ball 1 out of 3 times, you're going to go to the Hall of Fame. And it's just like, okay, you're sort of designed to to miss, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Right. Or swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you, you mentioned earlier exercise, but what do you do? You mentioned self-care. What are some of the things that you do for meditation or mindfulness or exercise, or how do you get centered or inspired?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just kind of go back to maybe these 5 things that I've learned are valuable. First, you have to remember to breathe. I read something the other day, and I wish I could tell you who wrote it because it was so good. But I don't know, and you can try this. People often hold their breath when they read emails, and they often hold their breath, particularly when it's someone that they have conflict with. So first is breathe. The second one is move. To your point, go for a run. Neither one of us is ever going to win the Boston Marathon. But that doesn't mean that we don't get some energy from those endorphins in terms of moving our bodies. The third one is I've discovered increasingly that being in nature, again, walk on the beach, walk in the forest, walk outside, sit by a tree, there is something incredibly calming about that. And then the last one, the last two. So nutrition, again, feed the engine, hydrate, eat right, all the basic stuff that we should do. But I think the mystery one that we all forget is we are designed to sleep. And I think what I see in this go-go technology world is people shortchange themselves on sleep. And I'm not sure if you've seen, the stuff Ariana Huffington has talked about this, but at Thrive Global. But Ariana Huffington talks about she had a breakdown because she wasn't sleeping. Wow. And if you think about it in professions like if you're a pilot or a surgeon or a truck driver, there are legislated rules of how much rest you need to get. And it's because you make mistakes when you're not rested. And I would say that one has been an absolute epiphany for me. Keeping up with the 4-hour-a-night sleepers, forget it. Yeah. Take care of your body. And one of the best ways to take care of your body is to get rest.
That is so powerful as I come off of 4 hours sleep.
Right. Of course.
No, very true. And so this is, I know you have a call coming up, so I'll wrap these up quickly. But do you have a few more minutes? Can I steal you for 2 minutes?
Let's do for 2 more minutes.
Buzz round. Okay. So you are very passionate about women and diversity in technology, which is something I'm very passionate about as well. And I love that you are, as a man, as an ally, as an advocate. So why are you so passionate about these things?
I think, we just learn so much from each other. Again, I think diversity in all manners, race, ethnicity, religion, ableness, neurodiversity, it just makes us better. And it's like, increasingly, I can't even understand why it's a conversation, because we all want each other to succeed and be successful. And everyone's experience has shaped them so much. We really need to recognize that that's a gift when someone who's different than us appears in our life and gives us different perspective. That's an absolute gift.
I love that very much. Beautiful, beautiful. What is the next place that you're traveling to after a very long year of being a road warrior who couldn't go anywhere?
Yeah, I do miss my airplane time. I realized I don't listen to much music if I'm not on an airplane. But let's see. My next trip is to Bend, Oregon. It's a cool mountain town, and we'll do some mountain biking and some regular biking and maybe some hiking. And my son has a lacrosse tournament there. And so that's my next trip, Bend, Oregon.
Oh, that's awesome. I have yet to go. I want to go to visit Oregon. It's on my list. So hopefully.
Yes, come visit, do Bend, do Portland, come up to Seattle. We can do Eastern Washington, and then we'll make our way up to Jay's family in British Columbia, probably the best place on the planet. And we have a great time, maybe meet in Whistler.
Oh, I love it. Let's do it. Can you teach me how to ski? Jay refuses.
I suck at skiing, but I will try to help you with snowboarding.
All right. I'm all in. Okay, great. And for anyone that wants to connect with you and find you, how can they do that?
Oh gosh, please don't. No, I mean, my the introvert says no. My primary platform is LinkedIn, in terms of just, for work and professional stuff. I do have a secret Instagram account called Monday Like the Day, where I post weird pictures from my travels. And right now, basically, you'll just see me in forests and woods taking pictures of trees and dumpsters and whatever else. But yeah, on LinkedIn, you'll probably see me most active.
That is awesome. I'm going to find you on the gram.
Yeah. It's Monday Like the Day.
Monday like the day. And if you could jump into my shoes and
Mm.
ask yourself anything I missed, what would you ask yourself?
Oh gosh. Hmm. What have I learned this year?
Good question. What have you learned this year? I'll steal it.
I think it's a lesson I continue to learn is time management is a fallacy. It's about managing your energy. And so if you make the time, but you don't show up in a good headspace, or you're tired, or you're cranky, you're actually doing yourself a disservice for showing up. But if you show up in the right mindset, with the right energy, at the right time, that's more important than hitting the goalpost on the thing on your Outlook calendar.
That is so powerful. I'm going to take note of that. That's quotable. That's so good.
That's a tough one. It's a tough one. Actually, there's another book I'm trying to think of what it is, but there's a book that's specifically around energy management, and I'll make sure I send it to you.
Awesome. Wonderful. We'll put them in the comments. Well, Marc, It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me and our audience, for inspiring us all, and for sharing some of your failures that lead you to success.
Well, it's really my honor. I mean, I've learned more from you. And again, I think that's the key is this notion of talking about failure and talking about learning. It's such a brave thing. And kudos to you for leaning into it, because I think it helps everybody kind of take down that veil, put the armor down a little bit, and really confront the reality that we're humans and we need this connection with one another.
I love it. And I'm happy to do that. And I'm happy to listen. And if I get a few people that listen in and are inspired with me, then I think that is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
So
you should be very proud of yourself. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope everyone out there learns from Marc and jumps in, fails forward, and is not afraid to live. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.